Okay, that wasn't what I expected. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just going to clarify that from the start. I'm speaking of the upcoming movie Killing Faith, supposed to be coming out on October 3rd. That's its official release date. I think it's coming to theaters. Not sure how wide the release is going to be. It stars Guy Pearce, DeWanda Wise, Bill Pullman, and Jack Alcott. And when I say it wasn't what I expected, it was basically some of the details in the premise. So I went into this knowing it's a Western and there's some sort of journey that the characters are on and thrills, because the area that they're traveling in, dangerous and all that, right? But there was another layer to this that I did not expect. And part of that is because I didn't fully read the synopsis because I didn't want to be too spoiled. Not really spoiled, but I kind of wanted to go in as fresh as possible. I didn't fully read the press notes that they sent to me, which has a more extensive summary of the story. Just didn't want that. And I was pleasantly surprised at how interesting this film was. I'm not huge into Westerns, but I really enjoyed this one. So the quick setup is it takes place in Arizona in 1849. There's been a lot of sickness in this area. It's very dangerous. And there's a little girl that's at the center of the story. Something I like is that your introduction to this little girl, you are clearly shown what's the deal with her. It's a little chilling, okay? And as the story goes on, you find out more about her history. She's a very young child. She doesn't talk. She can understand you, but she's mute. And then there is the character played by DeWanda Wise, and she wants to take this little girl somewhere to get some help. Guy Pearce decides to help her on this journey. And another character, the one played by Jack Alcott, he tags along as well. He works on the land where DeWanda's character lives. I cannot remember her character's name. I don't remember any of the characters' names except for the character that Jack Alcott played. His name was Edward. And I don't know why I remembered his name specifically, probably because it was mentioned very distinctly for certain reasons, specifically mentioned, that I thought was kind of funny. I liked a lot about this film. The stakes felt real. As they're having this journey, they encounter different dangers along the way. The dangers are constant. There is an element to this which kind of comes back around to what I mentioned at the beginning. I'm not going to specify what that element is, but there's an element to this film that adds an interesting sort of twist to it. And I think that element really helps the movie a lot. That's not to say that I wouldn't have liked it if it weren't for that, because just the journey that they were on and the interactions between the characters, that made for an interesting viewing experience. But this other underlying thing that was happening was really kind of what captivated my attention and kept me just really curious to find, wow, what's going to be the end result of this thing? And so I really like that about this film. I also liked the writing. I liked the dialogue. I felt that sometimes it was witty. And the boy who played Edward, Jack Alcott, who played Edward, he was really funny. He had some humorous moments because he just yapped all the time. He was a bit simple, okay? And so his character was kind of a bit of comic relief. Guy Pearce played a very rough around the edges, rude person. He was very damaged, and he gave a compelling performance. I thought he did great. DeWanda Wise, I don't know of anything I've seen her in before, but she looks familiar to me, so I'm pretty sure I've seen her in something. I didn't look up her IMDb, but one thing I did look up about her was what color were her gorgeous eyes, because my gosh, they're hazel and they're beautiful and they were striking. That's all I could notice every time it showed her. Oh my gosh, her eyes. Anyway, whatever. She was great in here. Bill Pullman, he doesn't show up until about 30 minutes before the movie is over. So if you're tuning in to watch him be a significant part, I mean, he is kind of a significant part, but he doesn't have a lot of screen time. So that was interesting. His character still adds weight to the story because of who he is and everything. And I thought they made good use of the time that he was on the screen, but I had totally forgotten that he was supposed to be in this movie until we saw him in the last third of the film, or less than last third of the film, because it's about an hour and 40 something minutes long, an hour and 47 or something like that. And he didn't show up until I looked at the timestamp when he showed up, and there was only about 30 minutes left in the movie. Something else I liked about this was that there were multiple times that the story took unexpected turns. That kind of ties in with what I mentioned at the very beginning. I was not expecting the way this story went. I liked that it took different routes that I hadn't anticipated, and they did it in a way that made sense to me, that I could go with it. It wasn't something that just felt like they had jumped the shark. It wasn't that type of unexpected, but it was... Here goes my dog. Hold on a minute. Come on, Chip. Sorry, what was I saying? I think I was saying something about the unexpected turns this film took. If I had... Really, Chibi? Having said all that, this film wasn't perfect. There were some things that kind of stood out to me as a little problematic. It wasn't anything major, honestly, and it was not enough to detract from my overall enjoyment of this film. I'll see if I can adequately explain some of the things that I had some problems with. Editing issues, or that's the only way I can think to describe it. That left me a little confused as to what was going on. And maybe it was just because I wasn't fully tuned in this particular moment or whatever that kind of confused me a little bit. There was a quick shot in between scenes of someone sitting on the ground. You saw them from the back, but it was unclear to me who it was. Maybe if I had rewound it and looked again, I would be able to recognize who it was. But the fact that I didn't immediately register who is this person made me think that that shot probably should have stayed a little bit longer on them, or it should have been a little more clear as to who it was. And I don't know if maybe that was just a mistake in the editing or what. Or maybe I was just a little slow when I was watching it. There were also some transitions between scenes, or at least one specifically that I'm thinking of. And I'm not going to give anything away, but there was this thing that happened. And by the time it's done, you can piece together what it was, but it felt a little jarring because there was not a clear demonstration of exactly what had happened. It was more indicated to you in a quick, one-line exposition, and then you see the result of this particular event or this thing that had happened, and it just felt so quick and so jarring. I kind of wish that had been given a little bit more space, more time to kind of breathe. That was one specific thing that jumped out at me as something that just... It didn't feel like it flowed as well as I would have liked it to. Like I said, it did make sense in the end, but I had to kind of mentally think about it and piece it together. And I'm still not 100% sure that I actually get the significance of what was going on, or that I get what was really happening. And I can't say more than that, because if I do, it'll kind of spoil the situation. And I don't want to do that, because I'd like you guys to experience this film without knowing too much, besides the very, basic stuff that I've given you. My final thoughts about Killing Faith are that it's a solid Western with strong atmosphere, strong acting, and an interesting setting, interesting time period. And the pros to this film outweigh any of the small issues that I have with it. Not perfect, like I already mentioned, but it was compelling and it was surprising in good ways. So I would definitely recommend this if you are fans of Westerns and stories that have a little bit of a different twist on it than maybe you thought it would have when you started watching it. Anyway, it'll be out in a few days, and I don't anticipate it's going to be on the big screen very long. So it should be available digitally probably in a few weeks. You know how it goes with stuff like that. So whenever you get around to watching it, if you're interested, Chibi. Chibi. So whenever you get around to watching it, if you're interested in watching it, let me know what you think. Okay, that's all I have to say for now about Killing Faith. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up before she keeps digging a hole in the chair over there. Bye.